continually, again and again, we can try our best to meet despair and defeat with a cheer. I think it's a practice. I think it's something that you're not going to get right away. So you can't despair yourself for not getting it right away. I think I finally was able to do it kind of coming into preseason this coming year, meeting some of the challenges on the team, learning how to just take it joyfully and step by step and not get overwhelmed with it. That was the first time where I was like, okay, I'm actually meeting this with more of a cheer. Not perfectly, but, kind of practicing what that poem preached a little bit.
Hello and welcome to Listening for Purpose. Our campus, our stories. I'm your host, Simeon Klepak, and this season of the show, we're talking to people at Valpo about what inspires them and how they discern purpose in their life. Today, my guest is Molly O'Rear, a junior business management major with an emphasis in project management and a minor in supply chain. That's not how you say it, but you get what I mean,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, definitely right.
Okay.
Good enough.
Molly is also a Bible study leader and discipleship leader over at St. Teresa's Catholic Ministry here on campus, and she's also a member of the soccer team. Can you tell us what position do you play?
I am a center midfielder, so the position that does all the running.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it. They make you do all the work.
Exactly. I mean, every position on the field does all their work, but midfielders definitely are known to run a bunch per game.
So I have a question for you. You've been here 3 years. Mm-hmm. Rather, this is your third year. What is your favorite place on campus?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say, okay, I know now it's called BB's, but it used to be called the CAF. So I still call it the CAF. But BB's.
Never forget the CAF.
Yeah, the CAF. It's called the CAF. BB's, the CAF, whatever you call it, but it is the CAF. I'm in there all the time studying. I am kind of weird, and I like to people watch while I study. And I know that's a very unpopular opinion, but I love the action that goes on.
People are so interesting.
They are. You get all sorts of people, and most of the time I run into someone I know, get to say hi. I love sitting by the windows in the little booth seats. Those are my favorite, and I could stay there for hours.
I've had so many times on campus where I'll be walking past someone or passing someone in a stairwell, and they are having the most fascinating conversation with someone else, and I'm like, what I wouldn't give just to hear what the heck is happening right now.
Right. The amount of animated conversations people get into is pretty funny.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's see. Okay. So before we get into the rest of our conversation today, I'd love to give you the chance to share some more about yourself with the audience. Mm-hmm. This season of the show, we're specifically asking our guests 3 questions. Where are you at? Where have you come from? And where are you going? And so you can take that to mean physically, mental, spiritual, career, whatever is important for you to share with the audience.
All right. I guess we'll start with where I'm at. I'll kind of just take it from the season of life I'm in. I just finished my junior season of soccer, which is crazy to me. Honestly, it just feels like yesterday I started as a freshman, and I know that's pretty cliche to say, but it's true. Everybody gets to that point where things have flown by. I've loved my time on the soccer team. I love my teammates, and that's been just a weird transition into coming into my senior year and my last year playing college soccer. So that was super fun, even though the season didn't go as well as we wanted it to. It was still awesome. Coming up on Thanksgiving break, I get to see some family members I haven't seen in a bit. So I'm super excited about that. I'm kind of looking towards the next steps, applying for internships, looking at maybe what job I'm going to have after college, which is crazy. I have 2 internships this coming week, so very fun, very exciting, but also nerve-wracking. Where I'm coming from, I was born and raised in Naperville, Illinois, with 2 brothers, one older, one younger. Came from a family with a huge sports background. Both my parents own their own respective companies, both within the sports realm. My dad hockey and my mom softball. Came from a very Catholic background as well. I was raised in the Catholic faith. Went to Catholic grade school and then a public high school. And very family-oriented background. I respect my family a lot and love them, and I owe a lot of my success to them. Where I'm going, that's always a question mark. It's definitely an adventure, and I'm just trying to learn as much as I can right now to kind of put the path forward and see what I want to do in my life, but I'm really open to all possibilities. There's a possibility of law school, possibility of playing more soccer after college, hopefully maybe going into a sales position. I mean, my major is project management, so I could go into that. Kind of possibilities are endless, and that's what I love about this stage of life.
Well, so between like soccer, business, like project management and stuff, and like law school, what is it that like draws you to each of those?
Great question. Law school, I've always been super interested in because of just the nature of law, and I thought it'd be really interesting to learn about. I actually had a law internship last summer, and I absolutely loved it. It was so fun. I took Professor Gingrich's class, business law. It was a required class for me, and just everything about law was super interesting. I've always been fascinated with the Constitution, so that's still in the back of my mind that I may do that one day. Within sales, my dad started off in sales, and I find it very competitive. I love the idea that you can apply that competitive nature into your job. I never really want to lose that competitiveness because it's such a big part of my personality, being an athlete and everything. So that's kind of what I'm pursuing right now and checking out. And then with soccer, I played so many sports growing up, and soccer was always my favorite for some reason. I think it's because of the diverse skill set, I would say. You're defending, you're attacking, you're running, you're cutting, jumping, everything. There's everything in soccer. It's not just like one thing that you do and then you're done. You're doing everything, and it makes you an all-around athlete.
Yeah, it sounds like whatever you do, you don't want something that's just very stable, I guess.
Yeah.
Like you like having that sense of like adventure or the chase, or like I have I have this many sales. I want to like figure out how I'm going to reach these people.
Right.
I want to keep being better at my game and figuring out the strategies with my teammates. And like even like law school might has the, I guess, reputation for being the most dusty out of the three of those options.
Right.
But even then, like you're still like I gotta figure this out. Like how do I solve this puzzle? It's all just like logic puzzles and stuff.
I agree. That's kind of what's drawing me towards it. So
that's exciting.
Yeah.
Awesome. So this season of the show, we are having our guests bring on something that inspires them, be it a movie, show, some music, a story, or maybe a really, really great podcast like this one.
Right.
And just share what about it inspires them and how it has impacted their own discernment of purpose in their life. So, Molly, what have you brought to share with us today?
So I brought a poem. It's called Carry On by Robert William Service, I think is his last name.
Robert William Service.
Yes.
Yeah, go figure.
Yeah. This was a poem that my dad sent to me actually last year. It was during a rougher time in my life, and he sent me this because it was something that got him through a rough time of his life. And ever since then, it's hanging up in my locker right now over at the Arc in our women's soccer locker room. It's one of the lock screens on my phone, and I always find a lot of inspiration from it.
So would you be willing to just read it for us so we can hear it?
Yeah, for sure. I apologize if I mess anything up, but here we go. Carry on. It's easy to fight when everything's right and you're mad with the thrill and the glory. It's easy to cheer when victory's near and wallow in fields that are gory. It's a different song when everything's wrong, when you're feeling infernally mortal. But when it's 10 against 1 and hope there is none, buck up, little soldier, and chortle. Carry on, there isn't much punch in your blow. You're glaring and staring and hitting out blind. You're muddy and bloody, but never you mind. Carry on, you haven't the ghost of a show. It's looking like death, but while you've a breath, carry on, my son, carry on. And so in strife of the battle of life, it's easy to fight when you're winning. It's easy to slave and starve and be brave when the dawn of success is beginning. But the man who can meet despair and defeat with a cheer, there's the man of God's choosing. The man who can fight to heaven's own height is the man who can fight when he's losing. Carry on, things were never looming so black, but show that you haven't a cowardly streak, and though you're unlucky, you never are weak. Carry on, carry on. Brace up for another attack, it's looking like hell, but you never can tell. Carry on, old man, carry on. There are some who drift out into the deserts of doubt, and some who in brutishness wallow. Wow, that was brutal. There are others I know who in piety go, because of a heaven to follow. But to labor with zest, and to give of your best, for the sweetness and joy of the giving, to help folks along with a hand and a song, why, there's the real sunshine in living. Carry on, carry on.
Wow. That's really beautiful.
Yeah, it would probably be even more beautiful if I didn't butcher it a couple times, but it is amazing.
You said you put that in in your locker.
Mm-hmm.
Have you read that poem to your teammates before a tough game or something, or is this?
I think they would laugh first because they would, but
That's a shame.
yeah, it is a shame. I mean, they would just give me a hard time. There's a couple people I've shared it with, and they've been like, "Wow, that's powerful." But yeah, if anybody's looked in my locker, they've seen it. So I don't really know if any of them have read it.
Yeah. So I like how the narrator in that poem is kind of talking about all these different situations, and when you have the good times and the bad times, but carry on is kind of this mantra throughout everything. Mm-hmm. That's really neat.
Yeah, that's also what stuck out to me. It's constant. No matter if it's a good time or a bad time that the narrator is talking about, you always carry on.
Yeah. So what about this poem resonated with you a year ago when you first read it?
Yeah. So the situation that I read this in, I was actually playing through a pretty brutal knee injury for that soccer season, and I was just so down bad and just kind of upset with how I was performing well but not performing to my standard. And it was tough because I was feeling a lot of pain and discomfort but wanted to keep going, and I just was kind of at this point where I'm just like, I don't know what else to do. And I love it because when my dad sent it to me, it reminded me that no matter where you are in life, the best way to move forward and the best way to get through something, you legit just have to carry on. It's next step forward. What's the next right thing kind of became my mantra after that. And then down the line, season ended, we had a wonderful season. We won our tournament championship, and it was great, and I'm so glad I pushed through that season. And then a few weeks later, I ended up getting knee surgery. Well, what's my next step after that? It's literally next right thing, and it's always carry on. So for any situation in your life, that poem can be just applicable.
Yeah, where you might not feel like you have the cards to know necessarily what you should do, mm-hmm. or no matter what's happening, if you keep going, it's going to something's going to happen eventually,
right?
And so it's better to, sounds like you're saying it's better to see what's right in front of you, what can I do right now, mm-hmm. instead of just getting caught in the well, what happens in 6 months or a year or whenever this thing happens,
yeah.
And then just not doing anything.
Right. It's definitely a control the controllables mindset. And also as, a person of faith, it's God only gives you what you need to do next. He doesn't give you the full picture. And that's kind of how life is lived, and you can't get past that. So you just have to keep going.
Could you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure. I would say, especially in my prayer life during that time, it was, I'm looking for it. I'm wanting everything to be fixed. I want my knee to be better. I want to, on the field be explosive again and be able to run the way I want to again and not be in so much pain. And I knew that it was going to take a long time, but I wanted to be there at that moment, but that wasn't realistic. So my prayer life at that time was, help me focus on the present moment. Help me figure out, okay, what's important now? What's my best next thing that I need to do? And that really gave me an appreciation for the people around me, the situation I was in, the life I was living, and helped me take in so much more gratitude than I would have if I didn't have that mindset and didn't pray for that. So that was kind of my relationship with the Lord at that point. And now looking back, I couldn't be more grateful for that time, and it set me up for huge success in the future.
Yeah, I think that that idea of gratitude is something that we've talked on on the show before, and that's something I've been thinking about lately. I think it's so easy to get stuck on, well, what's going to happen then, and what's going to happen then,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that you get caught up in the, like, that you get caught up in, like, your ambition and your tasks and your goals, that you don't stop and take a minute to realize, like, oh wait, like, there's a lot of good happening here,
Right.
and, like, all of these people are in my life, like, helping that good to happen, you know.
Definitely.
Do you think that do you think that gratitude has what impact do you think that had on, like, your outlook, I guess?
I think, I've always been aware of gratitude, and everybody always tries to be grateful. I think that that's something that's widely talked about, people who are happy are always the most grateful people in life. But there's a difference between being forcefully grateful and being grateful through, like, the suffering that you're going through, I would say. You can list off 20 million things that you're grateful for, but if you try to live in that present moment, that's you being grateful for that present moment. I think action in your gratitude is how you actually achieve that. So now I honestly, through hard situations, I kind of just try to smile at them and think, okay, this really deep down is a good thing because I know it's going to help me in the future. So I'm just going to show up to every situation, do my best, smile on my face, and that's my action of being grateful, instead of just saying, okay, I'm grateful for this. What's my action now?
Right. Yeah. Like, it's not something. This is really interesting. So you're saying gratitude isn't something that's just like, this is the way I feel.
Right.
But it's a decision we make and a thing we do in how we live our life.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
saying, I'm not going to just, like, wallow in how terrible this thing is. I'm going to do what's required of me in spite of this.
Right.
And then trust that, like God's going to provide.
Definitely. It's like a passivity versus action type of thing.
Yeah, and that's so, that sounds really empowering, honestly, because, like, it's, like, people say, oh, like, be grateful. I'm like, well, I don't feel grateful. Like, things suck,
Yeah,
like,
right.
things are really hard sometimes, and I think the way we think about, the way we think about gratitude, it's very, like, I don't know, very pillowy and saccharine sometimes, but it's like, just don't worry about those things and just think about, like, the good things,
Right.
But, like, that doesn't actually help, like, you or anyone when you're in that moment, So
Right.
having that action, like, is that's a really cool way to think about it, because then you can actually do something, keep participating in the situation, but then also not just be stuck in the rut, I guess.
Yeah, it's like everybody has their cross to bear in this life, so we're all going to have that suffering. But, telling a person, oh, be grateful through it all, they're just going to want to slap you after you say that. Like, we've all had someone who has said that to us when we've been going through the ringer. But the people who truly are grateful in life are those who are just putting the next foot forward, stepping through it, and just trying to live with their present moment and do whatever they can to get through it.
Yeah. And there's a certain amount of humility in that too, right?
Definitely. Yeah, that's a good word.
That's not like, oh, I know the way to fix this problem, and I'm gonna look at me, aren't I smart for getting myself out of this situation?
Right.
And it's not like, oh, look at me, I'm like, things are so bad for me right now, but instead it's like recognizing things are bad and also recognizing what you're able to do, and then just doing that without worrying, like, what other people are, how other people are perceiving your own, like, plight, I guess.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Join visiting PBK scholar Douglas E. Christie for his public lecture, Primary Wonder: Spirituality, Art, and Nature. He'll be discussing how art and poetry can help us rediscover the wonder of nature. The event will be held in the Duesenberg Recital Hall at 7 p.m. on Monday, February 24th, and is View Fieldwork approved. Dr. Christie will also be doing an informal student-led lunch Q&A at noon on the 24th at the Hearth Room in the Union. I'll be there to learn more about the intersection of art, poetry, and environment. I hope to see you there.
Hello, and welcome back to Listening for Purpose. My guest today is Molly O'Rear, and we are talking about the poem Carry On by Robert William Service.
Yep.
And so we were just discussing gratitude and persistence and just the attitude of just keep going on. And I thought that one line that stood out to me in the poem was when the narrator, I guess Service himself, talks about the sweetness of giving being this motivating factor. I don't know if you can find the line, but it's something about like some people do good because they're like, oh, I want to get to heaven. I want to have this, I guess, reward or something. But he's like, no, the way you got to do it is just what's in front of you. Where can you give? Did you find the line?
Yeah, that was actually at the very end. It said, there are some who drift out in the deserts of doubt, and some who are in brutishness wallow. There are others I know who in piety go because of a heaven to follow. But to labor with zest and to give of your best for the sweetness and joy of the giving, to help folks along with a hand in a song, why there's the real sunshine of living. Yeah. That's so funny. That actually stuck out to me too when I was reading it just then on the podcast. So
what was it about that was meaningful to you?
I love the part where it says why there's the real sunshine of living. Like the idea that giving of yourself is actually going to bring more joy than it is receiving. And that is actually crazy because in the book I'm reading, it's called Wisdom of the Heart by Peter Kreeft. One of the things he was just talking about, I was literally reading it yesterday, is you always are going to receive a lot more joy from giving than receiving, just by the nature of how we're built and how God has a will for our lives, and he's all-powerful, all-knowing, but also all-giving. So if we're made in his image and likeness, we're also built to give as well.
Right, like we give as God gives to us.
Exactly, yeah. So it was pretty cool to, like, reading that, I just kind of made that connection that that's the purpose of life God gave to us so we can give to others.
Whoa.
Dang.
Deep thoughts here on the podcast.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. And it also struck me how it's very, I guess, relational, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not about just, like, he talks about, like, wallowing in despair or being, like, just kind of individually pious because because you have your vision of heaven or whatever you have.
Right.
But both those are very, like, this is me and my, like, well-being, instead of what do the people around me need? How am I engaging them?
Right.
So,
And I think there's a balance, you know, obviously. We all have to live our own lives and be focused on ourselves, but something my dad said, which is ironic, he's the one that gave me this poem. He's such a wise person. He said, if you're ever upset about something and you want to just kind of get over it, the best way to make yourself feel better is to go focus on others. Go focus on what someone else needs. Focus on their problems. Focus on how you can help them. And I love that because if we continually focus on our own despair, our own discomfort, then it's almost like there's not a way out. You know, there's like we can get stuck in it, but if we go help others, we're not feeling that emotion as strongly as they are. So we can provide solutions. We can see that way out. We can be that light at the end of the tunnel for them.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's if you're just on yourself, then you only have your own experience to work off of. But if you're engaging with others, you're like, well, I might not know what to do about my own problem, but I can actually see a way that I can help this other person.
Exactly.
And bring some light into the world that way.
That's a really good point.
There's more, I guess, more opportunities when we're in service than when we're just kind of closed off in our own bubbles.
Definitely, I agree with that.
Yeah. So then, okay, he talks about in the poem also meeting despair and defeat with a cheer, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I think that's tough, you know?
Definitely,
Like it
yeah.
is like when you have something that you're really putting your hopes on and it doesn't pan out, like that sucks.
Yeah, it's
So
gut-wrenching sometimes.
yeah, what have you, how have you kind of like met those situations?
I think when I first read this poem, I read that line and almost was, I think I kind of got defensive about it probably at first because I definitely wasn't meeting despair and defeat with a cheer. But through moving past that and just kind of living life and maturing a little bit, I realized that there was no reason to get defensive about it because continually, again and again, we can try our best to meet despair and defeat with a cheer. I think it's a practice. I think it's something that you're not going to get right away. So you can't despair yourself for not getting it right away. I think I finally was able to do it kind of coming into preseason this coming year, meeting some of the challenges on the team, learning how to just take it joyfully and step by step and not get overwhelmed with it. That was the first time where I was like, okay, I'm actually meeting this with more of a cheer. Not perfectly, but, you know, kind of practicing what that poem preached a little bit.
Yeah. I think it's interesting you mentioned like getting defensive, you know, and like it's like that I think a lot of times we have this attitude of like if this thing happens, this is happening like to me and reflects something about like I don't know my worth or what I am or whatever, you know, and so in some ways like kind of being able to detach yourself from that and be like, well, this game didn't turn out how I wanted. This sale, this job interview, whatever, like this this didn't go how I had planned it to, you know.
Definitely.
But not letting that, I guess, like pull down on your own sense of self, I guess, you know.
Yeah, that's a great point. That makes me think of, you know, as Christians, we believe that we're daughters and sons of God, and that's our identity, and nothing can ever change that. So remembering that and remembering what your identity is, it kind of takes away that pressure and allows you to detach yourself from whatever problem you're facing, just like you said. So that's a great point.
Do you have anything that helps you to, I guess, remember that identity or like reinforce that, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what helped me realize that, I first heard that, and it really stuck with me, that message that I'm a daughter of God, my freshman year going through Bible study. And my Bible study leader at the time was also one of another member of our soccer team. And she's now one of my best friends, and I still talk to her almost every single day. And she was big on that. She would always remind me, she's like, you're a daughter of God. Doesn't matter what's happening in your life. Like, nothing can ever change that identity. So I make sure whenever I'm closing Bible study in prayer or I am closing us in team prayer before a game, that's the thing I always end with. And help us to remember that we are your daughters and nothing can ever change that. So that's kind of how I make sure I remember that. And it's a struggle sometimes, but I also have really good people in my life that help me remind me of it too.
Yeah. So other than that teammate, who else in your life helps you remember that?
Oh, I have great roommates, both who help me with that. All the girls in my Bible study, my discipleship leader at the right now and also back then. My parents, I have so many people in my life that help me. Our priest over at St. Teresa of Avila, Father Jacob, he's awesome. He'll always remind us of that. And honestly, if you just look at anything in the Bible, it will remind you of it pretty dang quickly.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, it seems like church is a pretty important part of your life. Is that something that's been really constant during your life, or is that something that you kind of had to, I guess, take the initiative in? Or because I know for a lot of people, like a lot of people grow up going to church and then come to college and they're like, oh wait, that's just kind of my parents' thing, you know? So like, how did that kind of, was that always something that was pretty core to you, or is that something that you kind of had to take on?
Yeah, great question. I think, you know, as you said, most people grow up going to church, and then it's their parents' thing and their parents' thing only, and then they find it for themselves later on in life. Mine was a little bit different. I went to Catholic school, K through 8, and so that was when it was kind of my parents' thing. But through going to religion class, I fell in love with it. I saw so much truth in it, and I wanted to learn so much more about it. So then when I went to public school, then it really was my choice. My family wasn't the most practicing Catholics. It wasn't a requirement in my family to go to Mass on Sundays. It was kind of a pick and choose when we were going to go. Definitely not super, super strict in the Catholic rules or just the Catholic faith in general. So I really did choose it for myself within high school. And then, so getting to college, I already had a strong faith base in terms of, I chose it for myself already. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky enough to be able to do that and have the resources in order to do that, because a lot of people don't. And then coming here, I was lucky enough to find St. Teresa of Avila Catholic community, met wonderful people, met the missionaries at the time who just completely invited me in. I always love to tell the story that the first time I met one of the missionaries, Gina, on campus, I was with 2 of my teammates.
Shout out Gina.
Yeah, shout out Gina. I'm probably going to send this to you, so love you. I was with 2 teammates, and we had gone to Mass. It was my second week of being at school. And Gina walks in with one of the other missionaries, and my 2 teammates are just hugging on them, so excited to see them, because it'd been a whole summer since they seen them, and I'm like, who the heck are these people? Gina does not introduce herself to me. She doesn't say a word of who she is, where she's from, anything. All she does is she turns to me and she goes, "You want to come over to my house for breakfast?" And I'm like, "Hi, I'm Molly. Nice to meet you." I ended up going to breakfast with her that day, and
Guess I'm going to a stranger's house. This must be what you do in college.
I know. I was kind of like, should I be stranger danger? I was like, she seems nice. I feel like I could run away if I need to. If a lady at church has invited me to breakfast.
I could take her in a fight, probably.
Yeah, I was like, I think I should be okay. And then ever since then, I literally just got back from a trip with Gina 2 weeks ago.
Awesome.
So, that kind of stuff, so welcoming, and I am so thankful to have those people in my life.
That is wonderful.
Yeah.
Building off of the people that are important in your life, it sounds like your family and specifically your parents have had a really big impact on you.
Definitely.
And you look up to them a lot. And I think your father shared this poem, Carry On, with you, and to kind of encourage you to, persist during this hard time in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an attitude, I guess, that you've seen reflected in your parents and the way they live their life?
Definitely. I would say with my mom, she's probably the toughest lady I know. Everybody describes her as that. She's a big personality, strong lady. You don't mess with her or her family. And I saw that toughness from her growing up. And then from my dad, I saw the same toughness, but I saw a lot of joy within the hardship. That's where I kind of learned that lesson. He was always so joyful within every hardship, always loved to look on the bright side of things, and was always thankful for the hardship. I remember there was a couple times growing up where I wasn't getting the playing time I wanted on the soccer field, and I was brand new at a club, and things just weren't going so well, and he was like, "I'm so glad you're going through this. This is going to help you so much in life." And in the moment, I'm like, "Oh, thanks, Dad. I was hoping for some sympathy."
It's going to build character.
Yeah, it was a classic. It's going to build character, but he was so loving through it and just wanted me to learn as many life lessons as I could and to just greet life with a smile.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just kind of being able to have that joy in the hardship, in those tough moments, and then also encourage you as his daughter to take the same attitude, even though it didn't make sense to you in the moment. I'm guessing the fact that you saw him living out his life that way, I don't know, made it more believable. Oh wait, you can actually do this.
Definitely. I mean, both parents went through their fair share of hardships, and my dad was a rough and tough hockey player for all of his life, so it's not like he came from a background of no hardship or anything. So that's why I think I respect them the most.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just so now, as we wrap things up, I really appreciate you coming on the show, and I'm wondering, is there kind of one final thought or nugget that you'd like to leave our audience with? Just kind of one little thing to give them as they continue to think about purpose and think about the direction in their life.
Definitely. Wow, that's a Tall order, but I'll do my best. I guess in theme of what we've been talking about, with purpose is I would advise everyone who listens to find your purpose in something concrete, find your purpose in something that never changes, because if you think about it, everything in life is going to be, it's not constant. Our jobs are going to change, family members come and go, friends come and go. Try to find something that's constant. And for me, that's always been the Lord. And I've been blessed enough to be able to find my relationship with the Lord and have the resources to do so. So yeah, I just encourage people, think about what's constant in your life and think about where your identity truly comes from. And from there, you will find a lot of peace and a lot of joy.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because to end with this notion of constancy and kind of like that being grounded in your identity, because we started the conversation with talking about your future and all the adventure, and all the just like the competition, how like competition is very dynamic and very like well, maybe we'll do this thing, but maybe we got to change things up, but what then do you think is the relationship between that like groundedness and knowing and that constancy and having something concrete, but then also having that I guess adaptive or adventurous dynamic to what you're doing?
Yeah, great question, because they're like polar opposites, right? I would say the fact that I have a constant in my life is what allows me to compete well. Because if I don't have a constant in my life, I'm fallible and able to be swayed through my competition. I'm allowed to put my identity in the competition. And my identity is then in whether I win or lose, and that's inconstant, right? So my constant in the Lord is what allows me to compete well, use my abilities, and just really go for it and be free in that competition and just be free to compete and just to go on all these adventures and see what life has for me.
Yeah, you're able to actually take some of those risks because that, I guess, core of who you are, like that's not in jeopardy or anything. Yeah.
I don't have to worry about any of that. I just have to go live and go learn. And that's actually a blessing to be able to do, to learn and to fail.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming on the show. I love talking about this wonderful poem and just about the like perseverance and I guess the hopefulness, and that we find in serving each other, and the way that kind of that dynamic is propelled by this constancy, this constancy that grounds us in our identity.
Definitely, yeah. No, thanks for having me on. This was awesome and really enjoyed talking about it.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this week on another episode of Listening for Purpose, Our Campus, Our Stories. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. We want to get the whole campus community involved in sharing each other's stories and listening to each other, and we would really appreciate your help in spreading the word. This episode was recorded and edited by me, Simeon Klepak, with help from Kat Peters, Gabby Unziker, and Cam Haggett. For a video version of the show, head over to our YouTube channel. We are at ILAS at Valpo on YouTube. For information about the Institute for Leadership and Service, the CAPS Fellows Program, or the Allen Scholars Program, check out our website at valpo.edu/ILAS or email us at lead.serve@valpo.edu. Thank you for joining me this week, and I'll see you next time.